Hey, Joe Zarzaur here with Dr. Evan Malone for another COVID-19 update. We haven't done one in a while. It's been over a month, it seems like. And the reason for that is it seems like things are calming down somewhat locally. I don't want to encourage anybody to do anything but keep up the mitigation efforts. But, the vaccinations are becoming more available. And then today I wanted Dr. Malone to talk about the J&J vaccine, what's different about it. He's going to attach various illustrations and articles discussing the difference in the J&J vaccine versus the Moderna and the Pfizer that's available. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about my experience personally with the Moderna vaccine. So Dr. Malone, let's talk first about the J&J vaccine. How is it different than the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines? And why are people saying it's why does it have a less 70% effective rate or whatever for serious disease or hospitalization versus the Moderna and the Pfizer?
So I'll start off by going back to this here, and we talked about this types of vaccines back when Moderna and Pfizer were first coming out. And we're looking at the second from the right side, the RNA vaccine, mRNA. So everybody's always said, oh yeah, it's mRNA. That's all we've had to this point with Pfizer and Moderna's. And those were the first vaccines that used mRNA technology for vaccination. It's been around for other disease processes. So now Johnson & Johnson comes out, and we're looking basically at the middle one here, the non-replicating viral vector vaccine. Sounds complicated, right?
Yes.
So what this is you are injected with adenovirus, which is a commonly occurring virus that it's similar to like getting the common cold or an upper respiratory tract infection or viral URI. You are injected with that virus. However, that virus does not have the ability to replicate inside of its host, you, the human. That part of its genetic material has been incapacitated, but the genetic material has had the spike protein code inserted into it. So it's that cookbook, it's the directions on it for your body and how to make the spike protein, which is really what that mRNA was doing as well. So you get this injected into you, your body then reads that code, that cookbook, that recipe, and says, oh, I'm going to start making this spike protein. And it makes a spike protein, and your body then sees that presented to it, and you mount an immune response. And this has been technology that's been used for Ebola and other vaccines in the past. So this is not as foreign, I guess, of an idea when it comes to vaccination. It's been used before, and it's great technology. And I'll get to your question about, is it as effective and all that. Well, I watched on Friday, in the background, I had it on at least. Here's the benefits to Johnson & Johnson. You've heard them in the news already. And the big thing is, you think about Ebola. Why would we use it for Ebola, this technology for Ebola? Well, you can't store it in this in these sub minus 80 degree temperatures like the mRNA. You can store it in a regular refrigerator. It's easily portable, it has a long shelf life, and it can be deployed on a one-shot basis. And think about where maybe we have parts of the country, the world where, wow, like this just opened up a whole lot more opportunity to get this vaccine to people worldwide. So that idea right there should offset any, is it 70% effective? Is it 80% effective? Is it 90% effective? You're just getting something somewhere. So I urge people to think about it that way before you get into the numbers. Now, the antibody response with Johnson & Johnson, it's still got a 96% effective rate in having the human being that's been injected with it to mount an antibody response, which is basically the same as what you saw with Moderna and Pfizer. That's really, those were the headlines back in December, the end of December. So now we're looking at how effective are those antibodies in stopping the illness. And it's a little bit apples and oranges, meaning that Johnson & Johnson looked at their data differently than Pfizer and Moderna. And all comers, really, it stopped 70% of people with moderate illness or worse from really getting the illness, if that makes any sense. It's really hard to tweeze it apart. But the one tag I will tell you is that they had no hospitalizations and no deaths from anybody who had received the Johnson and Johnson. So,
and I heard today that when they were doing the Johnson and Johnson trial, I guess 2 or 3 people in the placebo group actually died from the virus. So the other thing that I heard you say, but I heard Dr. Fauci and some others say it, you can't compare the trial of the Pfizer and Moderna to the trial of the Johnson and Johnson, because at the time they did the trial of the Johnson and Johnson, there were other variants around, there are other factors. So you can't compare the numbers. It's not like comparing apples to apples. When you compare the numbers for Moderna and Pfizer to the numbers for J&J, because the trials were conducted at different times with different virus variants, correct?
Yep. Exactly, and that's, I'm sharing a slide here. This was from Friday's presentation that the FDA went through, and basically says, at the very bottom here, it says that this was all during a time where there was highly transmissible variants that were emerging, and everything that you just mentioned with Dr. Fauci's interview. So it is apples and oranges. So to say, oh, I got the Moderna one, so I'm better off than you are, and you got the Johnson or whatever, it's really not the case. To know that you're diminishing your capacity to have moderate or severe infection, even 70% chance, that's pretty good. I mean, that's great, in fact. So I caution people on seeing some of the headlines where there's 60 or 70 or 85%, and then they're all remembering back to this 96% that Moderna and Pfizer had for their data, but that was completely different sets of data. So it's not that it wasn't as effective. So again, I think if you think about a part of the country where they don't have the refrigeration capabilities for Moderna or Pfizer, and maybe some individuals who don't want to or won't be able to come back for a second shot, you have one chance at getting a shot into them in a part of the country or the world where you don't have the refrigeration capabilities. This is awesome. Yeah. This is a great opportunity. So I think if you're in the situation where you're signing up for a vaccine, your doctor's pointing you in the direction to get your vaccine, I wouldn't pick between any of them at all. If that's what's available, I'd go with it. Right. Now, if you have like some irrational fear of needles and you're only going to do one, and you want to wait a week to get the Johnson & Johnson, then that's personal call.
Right. Okay. So then I was going to also talk at the tail end of this about my personal experience with the Moderna vaccine. Yeah. To recap, I caught the virus somehow in September. And it threw me for a loop in the sense that it wasn't like a 2-week thing and I was done. It was like a 3.5 month symptom-laden sickness. Of course, the first couple of weeks were first 2 days were horrible, fever, chills, miserable. And then you have 2 weeks of like feeling bad. And then you have these lingering symptoms. That was the worst part of this. That sort of tag along for a long period of time. Then you get the feeling they're never going to go away. Those lasted 3 months, 2.5, 3 months. And so, but the last symptom I had was in December or so, mid-December. And so I've been symptom-free, I guess, felt symptom-free since December. And then I had a repeat. We showed my lung scans, and they showed they were full of infiltrates back when I was immediately recovered from the acute disease. And then I had a repeat CT scan last month, and of course, thankfully, everything's gone. I had the heart test that showed that they thought I had inflammation in my heart, and it fortunately was not. So that was okay. I had that test done after the acute disease had gone. So fast forward 2 more months, and here we are in late February, and I'm now a candidate for the vaccine because I have some risk factors, heart disease and high blood pressure. So my doctor encouraged me to get the vaccine. And of course, Moderna was the only one and Pfizer were the only 2 available. I think Moderna is the one that's available here locally. So I did that one. I got the shot, the first dose, if you call it that, around 8:15 in the morning at Olive Baptist Church. Thank you for all those people that are doing that out there. Appreciate it. And I came to work. I worked out. I came to work. I worked the whole day. Around 6, I started feeling feverish and had chills by 7. And I was full blown, felt like I had the virus again with acute symptoms by 7:30, 8 o'clock Friday night. And a full 24, 27 hours of those symptoms, unfortunately, after that first dose. Now, the good news was by Sunday afternoon, I was back to normal again, and I felt fine. The bad news was I had to go through that period of time where I didn't feel good, and it felt horrible, actually, for 24 hours. So I started a lot of downtime that weekend. I started researching there's a lot of stuff out there about how the vaccine affects people that didn't have the virus, okay, because fortunately that's most people. But there's not a lot of data out there, or there wasn't a lot of data out there about how the vaccine affects you if you've had the virus. But I was able to find an article that I sent to Dr. Malone, who pulled a study. And then we found another study. And then between Dr. Malone and Dr. Ryan, my primary doctor, we've sort of looked at the studies. And really, it looks like if you had the virus, and I'm not giving medical advice here, but if you've had the virus, here's a study, and you have 1 dose of the Moderna vaccine or the Pfizer vaccine, and you have a big reaction to it, that means your body already has the antibodies, built up and stored away. That 1 dose could likely give you enough of a vaccine to ward off future virus. So based on the studies that exist right now, which is we're March 2nd, 2021, unless something else comes up, my doctor and I have decided that I'm not going to go forward with the second dose. So that's where we are as of now. I'm going to post a link to the 2 studies that Dr. Malone and Dr. Ryan have reviewed with me, and I've reviewed, and we've determined that maybe it's okay to not get the second dose. In any event, that's where we are right now. I just wanted to put that out there for your consumption. Of course, you and your doctor should make that decision. You shouldn't make it based on what I'm telling you. But you should take the studies that we are going to post on this video and take them to your doctor that has prescribed you the vaccination. There may be a good medical reason that you need the vaccination, both doses. So you should look at that before making any decisions. Dr. Malone, did you have any comments about any of that? I know it's a sort of...
Well, I just wanted to make a couple points that both these studies, and I think we discussed this at least over email, was there were smaller pools of data. So it's obviously, I think this is ripe for more research. But what both of these studies are finding are that people who have been infected get 1 shot, their antibody response from just that 1 shot is more stout than someone who never had it, who got both shots already. So you're already getting a bigger bump, and that antibody response, that your body is already revved up, and that translates to how you describe your symptoms at 24 hours.
And the idea that I would get a second dose, which is supposed to be worse than the first dose in the sense that you're getting more of the virus, they're expecting more of a response. When I had that kind of response from the initial dose, is frankly something I'm not really that interested in going through. Now, I was willing to do it if my doctor said I needed to or I had to, but after reading these studies, he and Dr. Malone, I think came to some consensus that they see that my body's reaction is probably sufficient to ward off any disease moving forward. But anyway, things could change. If another study comes out between now and next month or so, or when I'm supposed to have the second dose, then maybe I will have it. But as of now, we have 2 studies that both conclude the same thing, which is maybe 1 dose is enough for people that had the virus and had a serious reaction to the first dose. But
and Joe, you're just talking about right now the currently prescribed 3-week interval. It could be something where 3 months from now they say, hey, we're recommending the second dose for these people. for other studies. And so you could say, hey, I'm going to go back and do that second dose now 2 months down the road. And it's not like you have to start over with shot number 1.
Oh, that's good.
So I think that this is something where there's a little bit of room for, I guess, waiting this out.
Yep. I also think it's important to again, reaffirm the fact that this is not over. We're having outbreaks here at the office last week. We had an outbreak with one of the staff members from a birthday party that she went to that was at her house. And so we had to have everybody tested that day. And of course, we're always masked when we're not alone. And we're in common areas, we're masked and we're cleaning down, wiping down everything, and we're testing. But my point in saying this is we're not done with this, and you've got to be vigilant until everybody's, or most people have gotten the vaccine. A large percentage of people have gotten the vaccine, I think 80%. Until somebody has declared that this thing is over, we're still in it. So be vigilant about that still, even though the vaccine is available. Okay.
Can I add one last thing? And
sure.
we'll share this. The CDC, and I'll put this up. I found this late in the day here after I sent some of the information. After I sent some of the information to Michelle, is right here. The CDC updated. Now we all know someone who's gotten the vaccine, right? Or a handful. So now the CDC put out guidelines on what vaccinated people need to do if they've been exposed to someone who's sick. They basically say you do not need to quarantine, and you need to fit these 3 criteria to say you don't need to quarantine. So you're 2 weeks out from your second dose, you're fully vaccinated, you're within the 3 months of being vaccinated, and you don't have any symptoms. So you don't need to quarantine, because I think that's going to become the new question that people come up with. Well, I've been vaccinated, what do I need to do? So this is your simple answer right here on this one single slide. And
but that doesn't say they're not supposed to wear a mask. That just says they don't have to quarantine.
Exactly. Yeah. So masking and sanitizing and limiting your contact is all still part of the game. But if it's the situation like where you have someone in a common area, like a workspace with you, and their diagnosis is, hey, we got the acute illness. And if you say, hey, well, I just got my second dose and it was last week, you should probably quarantine, but I got my second dose and it was a month ago. You don't need a quarantine so long as you fit those criteria. And so I think we're going to start seeing more of that as an additional layer to what do we do in these situations where there's outbreaks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Malone. If y'all have any questions for us, you can find us on the web at zarzaurlaw.com, or you can call the office at 855-HIRE-JOE. Y'all take care. Thank you.